Welcome to As the Soul Turns, where we share stories of metaphysics, alchemy, healing, and awakening. With your host, internationally known as the Soul's Shaman, Miss Johanna Burkhardt. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and of course, interact if you're live. Hello, my love. Give me 1 second. Hello, my love. We are still having technical difficulties. Give me 1 second. There's two of me. There we go. Hello, my loves, and welcome to episode 3 of As the Soul Turns. I apologize for our technical difficulties. You would think we are still in retrograde. Gotta love the shadow period. I've had a lot of tech issues today. So thank you for hopping on and joining me. I want to start off with a little update and let you guys know that I will not be running this podcast every single week. It will be when I have inspired content or stories to share. And I'm also going to be soon putting out the word for the opportunity for others to come on and join my podcast and share their stories of metaphysics and alchemy and healing, because everything is better with friends. So I will be sharing that. So if you or someone you know has an amazing story of a metaphysical experience or their spirit experience of their awakening or healing journey, that's just like a story that you got to tell, then let me know. Hey, Summer, let me know, and maybe we can get you on the podcast or get them. So look forward to that. That's going to be coming out. I'll be sharing more access to that. You know, today I was going to talk about, on today's podcast, I was going to talk about my experience in the Hall of Mirrors. I've had several experiences in the Hall of Mirrors. But something else, Spirit kind of derailed that a little bit, and we are going to keep with the topic of the mirror. But something that I want to talk about is a little bit different. And I don't know, I just think maybe with the energy that we're currently in, or whatever the case may be, that this will be something that people will get value out of. And I know it's something that just contemplating it gives me value. And it gives you kind of a little insight into me. And so today's episode is entitled The Mirror, but it's going to be something that I have been, I've talked about for years, you know, that we are the creator of our reality, and our state of being is what creates our reality, and that is reflected back to us. And I want to give you another perspective of that, another understanding of that. And sometimes hearing it a different way or looking at it a different way can really turn the lights on for us, can really like go, oh, you know, it just makes things click. That's why we can hear the same freaking story or the same advice, right? From 5 different people, 5 different ways, but that 6th person and just the way that they bring it across, or the story that they tell, is what makes it land or makes it click into place or makes it resonate with you. So we can never hear anything enough times in enough different ways, because it's always going to meet us where we are. And so something that I have been sitting with, a perspective I've been sitting with is the way you see yourself is the way that the world sees you. The way that you see yourself is the way that the world sees you. So how do you see yourself? How do you see yourself? There's going to be multiple ways in which we see ourselves. And it's going to be our choice at any given moment and any given day. And this choice can change multiple times, multiple ways. Each day, we might see ourselves from a different perspective. We might be wearing a different mask. We might be allowing a different aspect of ourself to be driving our human suit and our consciousness that day, right? Because that's all this is. It's a vehicle. It's a vehicle. And what we choose to let drive that vehicle, right, it is the energy and the state of being and the way that we want the world to see us. So before we go too much further into this episode, I want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Reclamation. It is one of my digital course experiences where you can reclaim and reconcile the aspects within you from now or any other life and any other existence through a very innovative technique called quantum embodiment. It is a technique that I developed, and I'm actually now also offering private sessions with QET. So if you have interest in learning about the different aspects of you and how to reconcile them and bring them into unity, into wholeness, into oneness, you can go to johannaburkhardt.com and look more into that. So this actually came about because I am getting ready to this this fall. Well, I'll say this fall. I've already started it, but I have multiple more. I have two more books at least that I want to write. And I've just been waiting for them to come together and waiting for it to begin. Well, a couple of nights ago it started. And that's how it begins. Like the the inspiration behind the book is there. And then all of a sudden I'll have this urge to start writing. Well, three paragraphs started to come out, and this whole idea of the way that we see ourselves is the way that the world sees us. So I want you to kind of think about this. The thing that I see from clients the most is either with pain and suffering or it's connected to their finances, right? So if you feel that you're unworthy or you feel like you're not enough, and that is the way that you see yourself, then that is how the world is going to interact with you. They're going to constantly see you as not enough, or they're going to constantly see you as unworthy. Not because you are, but that's because your state of being, right, is creating an emotional response, right? Emotions is energy and motion. So your state of being is the energy, and the emotion, the energy, the gas that you put behind it is the emotion, which fuels that state of being and forces it up to the surface. And that's the vibration that you send out. So your frequency is your state of being. The energy behind it is the emotion, is the fuel that actually sends out the signal, sends out the vibration that says, hey, this is what I'm emanating today. And again, that can change, right? It can change from hour to hour, minute to minute, day to day, week to week. And as we grow and evolve and become more aware of self and integrate and these aspects of ourself, we actually can change that base frequency or state of being. That's why so often, even when you're in a good place, consciously where you think you're in a good mood and things are going good, but the underlying current underneath might be not enough or unworthy, because that's how you truly feel about yourself, right? When everything is stripped away. And a lot of times we keep that hidden from ourselves. And this is why the self-awareness journey, right? And learning your energy and learning about who you are, getting to know yourself is what an awakening is. It's becoming more aware of self. So to make things easy today, and in my course Reclamation, I go into all the nitty gritty on this. But for today, we're going to keep it simple, and we're going to say that you have an inner child, and you have an ego aspect, and you have your truth, which is your soul aspect. When we know and understand parts work, we know that the healthiest person is 22 fragmented aspects of self. So we know that we're more than just those three. We know that those three are the labels. And within the ego, we have lots of protector personalities and lots of other versions of ourselves. And the inner child is a collective, is what I like to call it. I call it the inner child collective, because you don't just have one inner child. Who you were yesterday is an inner child, right? And then the soul is always there. The soul is our truth. It is our greatness. So we're going to stick with the inner child, the ego, and your greatness, the higher self, the true self, the soul. And I'm going to use these three for my story and kind of give you an idea of how this theory or this concept works, of how you see yourself is how the world sees you and how the world responds to you. And this is kind of where my book started, was reviewing these spaces. And I did them out of order. I didn't start with the inner child. I didn't start with my greatness or my higher self. So you're going to see me looking down for those who are watching this live. And I'm just going to read these passages to you and we're going to talk about them. So I'm the young adult who walks out of a country club bar at 2 a.m. and climbs in the back of a truck with a camper shell attached. I don't recall knowing the gentleman, but I was with my girlfriend. Watching them snort lines of cocaine, my friend begging me to just try a little to help me sober up. Only to witness me, only to witness me go into full anti-drug commercial as to all the reasons why you should not be snorting a line. I'm the woman who turned her pain into purpose, who capitalized on her own well-being while simultaneously being of service of others, who has survived many unthinkable traumas only to rise to new levels, the one who persevered in spite of the pain. I'm the woman who learned how to live in totality, to hold the higher knowing within the human experience, to experience the joy in the pain and the pain in the joy, to release the judgment and to just feel it all. I'm the little girl who in her eyes was abandoned, first by her mother, then by her father, and then by herself, who spent every day trying to read the room, read the needs of all in her vicinity, ensuring they wouldn't leave because I was helping them. I was valuable. A little girl who believed that her worth was derived on how much of herself she gave, only to receive breadcrumbs in exchange. A little girl who is exhausted and just wants to sleep and play, to truly be a child, to be free. Those are my starting points. The first one is an ego protector personality. The ego develops identity. I'm the strong woman, but I'm not just the strong woman. I was a woman who used escapism, who wore the mask that she was strong and could handle it all, but really spent most of her time trying to escape the pain. And when she wasn't escaping the pain, she was repressing it so deep that it was pressurizing. And all she could do was wear the mask, that she was strong enough to do it on her own, that she didn't need any help, that it wasn't affecting her. That's a protector. My ego developed an adult protector personality to protect my inner child. That's how it happens. So this protector personality was most of my 20s. Most of my 20s, I was a big partier. I was a lot of fun too, right? It was during my Leo moon cycle when I went into, if you guys follow human design, it was the stretch of my journey where the Leo was more in control of my moon, and the Leos are a lot of fun. They are. And I made everything humor and I blew everything off and I swept it under the rug and I just kept moving forward, not wanting to look at it. Eventually that rug's going to be too big. You can't even walk on it. Right. And when the pain came, when the anxiety came, when the fear came, I drank, I ate, I shopped. I worked my ass off. I used any type of avoidance that I could. Or escapism or medication, right? Because my attachment style is disorganized. I have a disorganized attachment style. So I'm not just an avoidant style where I'm a workaholic and I have to keep busy constantly to avoid my pain or be constantly doing something, distracting myself, right? and escaping through any means, right? It wasn't just alcohol or food or shopping. It was literally anything I could use to escape. I also have my anxious attachment style, which is codependency. And I would actually attach myself to my perpetrators and get closer to them, almost like a Stockholm syndrome, to where I needed them to need me so that I could stay in my comfortable misery, which makes you say, what the hell? Why would you do that? But we do that. We all do that at some level, right? Especially if you're an anxious attachment style. You know, the pain of staying the same has to outweigh the pain of change for you to realize that you have to break free from that codependency, break free from that very thing that's keeping you sick. So this is my ego personality, right? One of many, but the pretty much this is the one that ruled most of my 20s and some of my early 30s. And who was she protecting? She was protecting my inner child who was abandoned, right? Her mom left her at 3, and then her father left her for a bottle of Jim Beam when she was probably about 11, 10, 11, when her abuser came into the picture. And it taught me to abandon myself. It taught me that I came last, because from a very little, before the age of 7, I learned very quickly that if I was helpful to people, if I was of service to people, if I pleased them, if I knew what they needed before they did, they wouldn't leave me. They wouldn't leave me. They would meet my needs. But what they really did was they were not even meeting my basic survival needs. They weren't even meeting that. I was getting, it's like a Cinderella story, except I was getting less than breadcrumbs, right? It, and so we go to these polarities of where we have to create this bigger than life badass bitch who is going to kick anyone's ass and protect the shit out of this little girl who was left and abused. Those are usually between the two polarities that most people choose to see themselves. They're either the victim or they're the survivor, the one that's out to get justice. The one that's like, I don't need anyone or anything. I can do it all by myself. Why bother? So we're either weak in the victim, or we are overly strong and trying to do it all without help. We don't find our way into the balance, the that space in between. And then we have our greatness. What's your truth? My truth is I am enough. I am worthy. The truth is if I decided today to never do shadow work again and never heal, which probably would never happen, let's be real, if anybody really knows me, I like the dig sometimes. But if I chose today and said, you know what, I'm done with personal development work. I'm done. I'm just gonna live blissfully and whatever. It's okay. I'm enough as I am. And if I'm not enough for somebody else, that's their problem, not mine, because I decide, right? My greatness says you are worthy without doing anything. You are enough without doing anything. You are abundant regardless of what your bank account says or what kind of house you own or what kind of car you drive. That there's nothing that you have to do to prove those things. All you have to do is believe them. But here's the thing. Do you know why we don't believe? We don't believe that because we had the ones that we loved, right? The ones who are supposed to love us unconditionally. Those are the ones who programmed us to believe. And we believe them because those people, we know they love us, even if they don't love us in the way that we need them to, even if they don't love us in the way that they should. But we know that they still love us. And if they think that way about us in our perception, right? Because it's not always true. But in our perception, if we believe that's how they really see us, or that's how they're treating us this way, and they're saying these things, so it must be true because they love us. And why would they lie to us? But the truth is most of what parents do is project their own bullshit onto their kids. They don't want to deal with the pain. They don't want to face their own thing. So they make their kids feel guilty or shameful because that's how they feel. So we're all running around, all for the first 7 years of our life, being installed with shit that ain't even ours. It's viruses. Viruses. So what if all you had to do was ask yourself any given day, how do I see myself today? And here's the thing, you got to be honest. You got to be honest. There was a quote, if I can find it. Here we go. Well, maybe it'll pop in. Maybe spirit will help me out here. But you have to be honest. The truth is what's really going to set you free. And here's the thing, most of us are not honest with ourselves. We're not honest with ourselves. So if you were to be really honest with yourself and say, how do I see myself today? How do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as worthy and abundant and enough? Do you see yourself as beautiful? If someone was to compliment you, this is usually where you get the tell, right? So something that used to happen to me was people would refer me to clients, right? Someone would be like, oh my God, I had this session with Johanna. She was so amazing. It was life changing, blah, blah, blah. They would talk me up, right? Because that was their perception. They had an amazing experience. And this person would come to me and they'd say, oh, so and so referred me, and they really talked you up. And I would notice, not every day, but sometimes this would happen. I would notice that there would be a part of me that would be in doubt of that would hear those amazing words coming out of that person's mouth, and I would doubt it. I would go, oh my God. All of a sudden I would feel super small, and I'd be like, oh my God, how am I going to meet that expectation? This person has an expectation. What if I don't meet it? What if I'm not enough? What if I'm not enough today? I would notice that. But here's something that I've been working with is what if doubt is really trust on the way? What if doubt is trust on the way? What if when you feel doubt, it's your opportunity to go, do I trust myself? Do I trust myself to know that whatever is meant to be, whatever I'm meant to say, whatever I'm meant to do, whether it's a mistake or what we label as a mistake or something amazing, what if that doubt is just my opportunity to go, do we really trust ourselves? That whatever comes our way, we will be able to handle it when it does, right? Because that's what flow is. When you really trust yourself and your intuition, you trust that you don't need to be reading the room. You don't have to be reading the energy in front of you. You don't have to be trying to meet everybody's needs before they even know what they need. You don't have to do all of that shit. You don't, because you know that, well, whatever shows up in front of me, when it shows up in front of me, I'll know what to do, whether I think I know what I'm going to be doing or not. Because a lot of times people with trauma that had to be really good energy readers, I always say I'm the really good energy reader because I had to for survival. And so a lot of us are really good energy readers because we had to keep ourselves safe. But that's very draining to constantly be expanding yourself out into other people's fields. That's called poor boundaries, energetic boundaries, especially, to sense where they are and what they may need so that we are safe. That's external. That's not trusting. That's not trusting your own energy. That's not trusting that you'll know what to do. But when I look back at my stories that I told you, right? When I look back at these 3 paragraphs, my ego personality, even in a blacked out drunk state, right? And I have to use this example because I mean, a lot of us have been there in a drunk, blacked out state where I don't remember, because this is a story that was told back to me. that I got, I was not going to do cocaine. I wasn't going to do it. So even in my most compromised state, I still had my own back. I can honestly say to you and trust that I will never snort anything like that at my nose. Like it just won't ever happen. There's nothing someone can do. I was literally unconscious pretty much, and I still didn't do it. If that's not proof that I can trust myself, I don't know what is. So look back at your life, look back at the stories, the things that you have done. Find the evidence that you can trust yourself. Find the evidence that you are enough. Find the evidence that you are worthy, not based upon other people, though, but by your own actions and your own words. And when you ask yourself each day, like, how do I see myself today? Be honest. Journal it out. Talk it out. Open up your camera phone, hold space for yourself. Video yourself, whatever you got to do. But do it with you, not with anybody else. Do it with you first. And be honest. Because the real question is if someone came up to you in the store and said, "Oh my God, you are beautiful," or "You are handsome. You are so worthy. You are so abundant." Would you really feel that? Or would there be a part of you that contracts? Would there be a part of you that wants to go, "Oh no, I'm not. Thank you though." Because that's what I used to do. I used to deflect compliments, I should say. And if you're in business, right, and you want to put out an offer, you want to put something out into the world, are you going to let somebody pay you? Are you going to let someone value you? Or are you going to diminish that? Even if nobody buys from you, even if whatever. Same if you get a job, right? If you want to shoot for the best job, are you not going to apply because you think that you're unworthy? Or if you don't get the job, are you going to think that you're not good enough? This is what we've all been trained. We've all been trained this way. The first 7 years of your life is where your programs are installed at the root. These are your root wounds. And so when we're honest with ourselves and we check in with our body and we learn what the sensations mean in our body and we learn how to identify what personality, what version of us is showing up today, we are put back in control. We are put back in the driver's seat and we get to say, yeah, you know what? You don't get to drive today. You don't get to drive today. I'm going to drive. You can come along for the ride though, because your inner child's feelings that they're not enough are still valid. And your ego's protector personality that they're a badass and they can do it all their own is still valid. But it doesn't mean it has to be the thing that's driving you. It doesn't mean that it gets to be the dominant energy in your field. And this is why the work that I do for myself first and then for you guys is so valuable, because I learned how to work with those aspects of myself. Not to condemn them or punish them or deny them or avoid them, but to be like, hey, like this is a real part of me that needs to be expressed today. Or maybe this part of me does need to run the show so that I can have better understanding of what this part of me needs me to see, right? I see you, I hear you, you are safe, I love you anyway. Are you truly seeing the different parts of you? Because those fragments only exist because you've kept them separate, because you're in resistance. And honestly, 9 times out of 10, people don't even know they're in resistance. Or they do, and they suppress it, which means they choose to bury it under a pile of my to-do list of things I'll get to. It becomes an excuse. A lot of beliefs are just excuses that you've believed. You've told yourself so long that they became a belief. So the mirror of your reality is really what you think about you truly. And that is not a prison. It's just a state of awareness that we get to break, that we get to choose, that we get to say, hey, let me make friends with you. Let me make friends with you. You know, in 2019, I started working um, with the ancients on really ironing out the purification process. And the first order of business was all the parts of you have to be able to get on the same bus and they all have to be going in the same direction. If not, you're going to be constantly doing this, right? Or in a tug of war. And if you're a parent, you know. If you're a parent, you know, if you have a child that's throwing a tantrum that doesn't want to leave the store, that doesn't want whatever, they're going to rule your life. They're going to be on the floor kicking and screaming, making a scene, making you exhausted, making you have to go out of your way or end your trip early or whatever. They rule your life. They rule your life. But if that inner child trusts you just enough to get on the bus, they can still be tantruming. They can still be angry as all hell or sad as all get out. But will they willingly get up and go with you? And this is why trust is not a switch. It's not on or off. It's a process, right? Like doubt is trust on the way. I love that understanding. Doubt is trust on the way because there is a path to trust. And it starts with getting those aspects of you to be seen enough by you, your conscious self, brought into your awareness enough that you can love them enough to allow them to be who they are, where they are, and those feelings to be valid, right? Seen, heard, felt, to trust you enough to get on the bus and go in the direction of your dreams and in the direction of the reality that you are desiring. They may not like it. They may not be happy. They may not trust you fully, but they're like, you know what? I trust her enough. She's listening to me. She's seeing me. She's not pushing me away, hiding me in the closet anymore, or under the rug anymore. And she's loving me, just this part of me, just as it is. So I'm going to trust her enough to get on the bus and go in that direction. And then that process is you choosing who's going to drive that bus that day. And maybe it is the inner child, or maybe it is the protector personality that's got to drive the bus today. Maybe there's somewhere they need to take you. Maybe there's something you got to see. But this is the power of this method of quantum embodiment technique that I developed that really helped, like really helped me. And if it never helped anybody else, I would be okay with that because it really changed things for me. But that's the mirror. The mirror is your reality is going to project back to you your inner reality of how you truly see yourself. And sometimes that can be a real hard pill to swallow. And so you have to look at it with grace. You have to look at it with compassion. But that's the mirror. And I can't wait to have on another episode to talk about the Hall of Mirrors that I have experienced a few times. Um, Usually I'm with Goddess Mott when that happens. And it's always not something that I intentionally sit down and do. It's literally something that I get like, I'll have to do it in another episode to explain my process of how it happens in the story. But there's power in looking in that mirror. There's power in breaking the fog of denial, lifting the fog of denial, the curtain of denial, and saying, this is what it really is. This is how I really see myself. And sometimes that honesty is it's the key that unlocks the door, the iron door that has been keeping your heart closed. Sometimes honesty is that key. And you open that door and it's really heavy sometimes and it's really hard. But then you look and you say, oh my God, this really is how I see myself. And you have compassion and you hold space and you allow yourself to feel that. Because what you're really doing is you're seeing an aspect of yourself. And integration comes first from understanding. So you have to see, hear, and feel to have any understanding. And through understanding, we have an opportunity to have compassion. So that goes for having compassion and understanding for someone else. You truly have to see them and hear them, not be in your head coming up with a comeback, not being in your head coming up with your version of that perspective, but really hearing every word they're saying and validating their feelings, accepting them for where they are. In that moment, you understand them a little bit better, and they feel more understood because they were seen and heard. And it allows for compassion. And compassion is the energy of unconditional love. It's not empathy, it's not sympathy, it's compassion. Does trauma in your life block us from seeing good things in our mirror? Absolutely. Because the good things are always still there. But again, if your trauma response, I think I did a TikTok video on this. It might be on Instagram too. I don't remember. But I said, the reason why you're always seeing the worst case scenario is most likely because as a child, you were always preparing for the worst case scenario. Like the worst case scenario was everything is what happened. But recognizing that all you see is bad, all you see is lack, all you see is you preparing or bracing for impact. If you notice that, that gives you an opportunity to go, oh, okay, this is how I'm seeing myself. I'm seeing myself as somebody that only sees the bad stuff, that is always bracing for impact or always preparing for the worst case scenario. And what you're realizing is that version of you, that inner child, is doing that so that it will get your attention and you will see yourself and you will hear yourself and you will feel yourself. Integration cannot happen without that. And so many in the personal development field, so many in spiritual awakening communities, they can throw all the tools at you all you want. You can read all the books, you can watch all the videos, you can listen to all the podcasts. But if you don't know how to integrate that work, if you don't know how to apply it and integrate it, all you're doing is becoming more aware and more informative, but it's not your truth because you haven't become it. And to become it, you have to be it. That means you have to integrate it. You have to integrate it. My escaping work is to watch Johanna. Hey, we aren't perfect. We're not. You're never going to be 100% with this. You're never going to be 100% with anything. Perfection is a joke. It's not real. It's just a way of perfection comes from control, and control, everything that you're trying to control is rooted in fear. It's just what it is. So you get to choose, and you get to give yourself grace, and you get to ask yourself each day, how do I see myself today? And if a situation comes up where you feel triggered, you can ask yourself the same thing. How do I see myself right now? Because it's going to give you a clue as to what is being needed to be seen by you. And we can even, this is the microcosm, right? Coming down to us individually, but you can look at the macrocosm, which is the world stage. The world stage is a mirror of what the majority of the world, how the majority of the world sees themselves. For a very long time, we all saw ourselves as very dependent upon the government, very dependent on X, Y, and Z, whatever it may be. But when we break free, when the majority breaks free of that conditioning that we believe that we have to have this or that it has to be this way, that's when we will see the real change. And this is why we continuously go through events on the world stage that get more intense and more crazy and more mind-blowingly like, I can't believe this is happening. You wouldn't believe me. Like Twilight Zone. Because again, when the pain of staying the same outweighs the pain of change, change will begin. It will. So I'm excited finally to get this next book on the, in forward motion, even though this process is such a big undertaking. Writing a book is insanely crazy when you think about it, but it's very healing as well. Because I will be writing a book about my abandonment and healing the abandonment wound. And anyone who has it, if you have the abandonment wound, you've also been abandoning yourself. We're taught to abandon ourselves. We're taught that our worth can only be something if we're paid, if somebody needs us, if somebody wants us, if we're liked, if we're loved. That's not true though. What if you decided to resonate and choose your greatness? What would your greatness be? If your soul was to speak, how would they speak about you? What would they say about you? How would they describe themselves? In fact, if you want to take a homework assignment away from this episode, I ask you to do that. Connect to your inner children collective and say, how do we see ourselves? And be honest. Let it come out as honest as it can, as raw as it can. And then ask my ego personalities, how do we see ourselves? How do you describe yourselves? And let that flow. And then ask your soul, my greatness, how do you see us? And just start writing and see what comes out. And this is something that you can continuously do, right? Because you never really truly, this whole business about you knowing yourself, nobody actually ever really knows themselves. And I, I'm going to burst that bubble that you can ever really know yourself, because you can only meet yourself where you are. And if you're always changing, because change is the only thing that is consistent, change is the only thing that stays consistent throughout this journey. If you're always changing, if you're always evolving, then you can only ever know yourself where you are. You can only ever meet yourself where you are. And there may be commonalities and things that run congruently through your lifetime that are staples, foundational pieces of you. But that doesn't make who you are. You are a puzzle piece. That is a puzzle piece, right? You are a puzzle. And that those pieces are constantly changing colors. That picture is constantly changing. So what does your puzzle look like today? Is there pieces missing? What do they look like? And these are just all metaphors to help take some of the pressure off, because I can tell you, for me anyway, I have really high expectations of myself. And that came from childhood trauma, right? Because as a child, I was expected to do adult things that my adults didn't even, my adult caregivers didn't even know how to do. I was expected to know how to do things. So I created these high expectations for myself. And so I'm always measuring up against these extreme expectations of, you should be here and you should look like this and your life should look like that and your bank account should look like that. And I'm constantly have to remind myself that no, I don't. This is where I am. This is who I am now. I can't, how can we do this? This is what we do to ourselves. We put this undue pressure to be something that we're not, or that we're not ready to be yet, because, you know, who you want to be is a journey. And by the time you get there, you don't even want to be that person anymore. You've already moved on to being someone better or greater, right? It's never enough. So, what if you just got to know you now? What if you just decided that who you are right now is enough? And you just spent time getting to know all the aspects that are inside of you and making friends and family with them, building this trust and compassion and love within yourself. What if you just stopped trying to do and be all these other things and said, you know what, I'm just going to get to know my inner family, the ones that truly have my back. I'm going to hear them and love them and get to know them. What if you just did that? And every day that was, you just dealt with whatever showed up in front of you. How would your mirror change? Well, how would you see yourself? I think you would see yourself as very different, more patient, more compassionate, more relaxed, because you're not putting the weight of the world on your shoulders anymore to process years of trauma from people, you know? You just took that weight off your shoulders. You just took that blanket of grief off. And that blanket of grief, it's like a quilt patchwork of all the different versions of you that you won't let go of or say goodbye to, because then it would mean that your mom really didn't love you, or your dad really didn't love you, or that bully was actually, right. Sometimes we hold on to that pain as a way of self punishing, thinking that we're holding on to that pain because it's going to make them feel guilty. They don't care. They've already moved on. They're not worried about what they did to you. But we hold on to that pain. We don't allow for that integration because we don't want to feel it. We feel like we don't want to relive it, whatever the story is for you. But it's affecting your mirror. It's affecting what you see. It's affecting the way that you see the world, okay? It's colored. I put my glasses on, the world is colored. What is it colored by, though? However you see yourself in that moment. That's how the world is. That's how your reality will be colored. And knowing this is power, because now you get to choose. Now you're back in the driver's seat and you get to say, well, if this is truly how I see myself, then maybe I can at least have compassion and love for that. And that in itself will change the way you see yourself. It is powerful having awareness. But it's just information that you know. It's just information now stored in your file, probably in a zip drive, just waiting for you to unzip it and say, I'm actually going to do something with it now. I'm actually going to practice every day doing X, Y, and Z to integrate these parts of me so that I can evolve and let go of the suffering, let go of the story, let go of the pain. And that's a choice you and only you can make. So thank you guys for joining me for today's As the Soul Turns. And I hope that this brought some value to you and your journey and what you're going through, and gave you a different perception in which to see the world through. I'll see you guys next time.